Thursday's date, is it the 18th?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's special meeting of the Sunnyside City Council. For the record, all council members are here in person with the exception of Councilor Vasquez, who is here via Zoom. She asked just before the meeting, she contacted me, said she'd be on Zoom if there's no objection. We don't have rules against that as long as she's here. Councilor Vasquez, are you on?
Yes.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that we could hear you okay. Council be kind enough to remind me to ask her to be included in that and also for her vote so that we don't miss out on her comments as well. All right. Next order of business also, Councilor Frausto has requested to be excused from the January 13, 2024 council regular meeting. Is there any objection to excusing Councilor Frausto?
None.
And the 6th.
And the 6th of January as well. January 6 and 13.
No
All right,
objection.
hearing no objection, Councilor Frausto is excused from the January 6 and January 13 council meetings. All right. Next item is agenda approval. We do have some agenda amendments that need to be made, council, and so I'm going to read those off for you. First one on my list is at the end of the active agenda to adopt an ordinance approving the 2025 classification and compensation schedule. Next one is at the end of the active agenda, approve a resolution approving voucher number 17149 for the Chase payment that was pulled by council at the December 9, 2024 meeting. And then to remove item F, the fireworks ordinance. And then we have boards and commission appointments that we'd like to add at the end of the agenda as well. Is there any objection to any of these?
No.
Or questions on these? Are there other items that need to be added or pulled from the agenda tonight?
I don't see any.
All right. So with those amendments to the agenda, what is the desire of council on the agenda?
Approved. I'll second it.
Okay, well, I want to say we've got a motion by Councilor Beeler, second by Councilor Ripley. He was just ahead of you, Ms. Hart.
I heard him.
All right, is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Councilor Beeler,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Frausto,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Councilor Hart,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. The agenda has been amended. Item 3, public comment. As you may note, there's somebody signing up already. Due to council taking action this evening at this special meeting, we are providing a public comment period. Citizens are advised that they must limit their remarks to the council to 3 minutes. Council may refer items to staff for review and or research for presentations at a future meeting. And if somebody would hand me the list, we can get started with our public comment.
Thank you.
And one form for public comment and one was for public comment during the public hearing. So, oh, we don't, there was only one up here? There should have been, okay, let's do, thank you. Okay, we have one name on there. Well, we have one name. We'll make sure that is honored. All right, first name on our list for public comment is Teresa Hancock. Miss.
Excuse me. Good evening, Teresa Hancock, Sunnyside. I want to talk to you about a couple things. First, I'd like to encourage you, Dean, and the rest of council to continue the committee assignments that you have. I know LTAC felt very strongly about that, and I feel very strongly about it for the Finance Committee also. We have a lot of work to do with on LTAC, and I think with the way things worked out this year with the change of administration, that there wasn't a full year for you guys to get in on the committees. And I think it's really important to have a little continuity going into this next year, better eyes on things and knowing what's going on. So I want to encourage you to do that. The other thing, this is a budget item, but I thought I'd get it all over with in one public comment, is when I was on council, the jail what actually made money And I know that there was some creative stuff with MREs and all that kind of stuff. But I'm curious how, if we're balancing out what these contracts are costing us, are they really subsidizing our jail or is our jail subsidizing these other contracts? So that's something I'd like you to take a look at. So thank you.
Thank you. Next name on my list is Tom Dolan.
Good evening. My name is Tom Dolan, Sunnyside. I wanted to thank the council or the Rules Committee for the fun this morning because I haven't had an interview for a job in 25 years. That was kind of fun. I did do some looking around and couldn't figure out when that had been changed from the mayor designating those to the Rules Committee. Anywhere the RCW and the SMCs are all the same still. And I also wanted to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas if I don't see you before. Especially you, Derek. Oops, I'm not supposed to use names. But yeah, I just wanted to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year and hopefully we can get things rolling next year again. So thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
I forgot one thing. I'd like to give my wife the remainder of my time. She might need a few seconds or 4 or 5 seconds extra if it's not a problem.
Clerk can manage the timer. I don't see any objection to that. And by the way, just for public interest, Mr. Dolan came dressed to the nines this morning. He really cleans up well. So well done, Mr. Dolan. Next name on my list is Sharon Dolan.
Good evening, Sharon Dolan, Sunnyside resident. Dean, during the August 2024 special meeting regarding the $4 million deficit, you stated kicking it down the road, it being the knowledge of the Monson cell? Question. Using this money to shore up was this money used to shore up the general fund for an audit? This is inaction. I would like the details of your knowledge on this inaction. You gave the shooting at 2022 Cinco de Mayo as an excuse for not sharing your kicked knowledge. The proposed sale of Monson property was in May of 2023. The timeline doesn't fit, which makes me wonder if the city was already running in the red. 3.4 million in ambulance funds were removed and are used in the year-end budget of 2022, beginning 2023. Were these funds used to shore up an existing shortfall? How many qualified employees were fired or left because of this inaction? If they asked a question like what happened to the money in my enterprise fund, they were let go or left or investigated in a sham investigation to change the focus on what was going on. Did you ask, as the liaison between the council and staff, what was going on? Were the proper procedures to use those funds taken? What was the interest paid back to the fund at the promised date of repayment? Not sharing the knowledge you possessed caused the former council to vote on spending and other city business without full knowledge of city finances or spending. Your inaction put fellow council members in jeopardy. Kicking this knowledge down the road for the newly elected council to address. Did you let them know what you knew? When did you let them know? You and Jim Restitucci pushed to have a job evaluation for Elizabeth Alba before the newly elected council was seated, stating that the former council knew her. You put them in a situation of making an uninformed decision. With the knowledge you had, did you give her a glowing review? Another thing you kicked down the road was appointments to boards and commissions. You approved a few. Some volunteers have been waiting for 6 months. Hopefully this is not retaliation because our group has been asking questions for 2 years. Monica shared with our group that you are now open to a state auditor's office audit. Any audit, whether SAO audit or forensic audit, needs to be in-depth and cover possibly 2015 to 2023. I hope you will share with them any and all information that has caused inaction on your part. This will save the city time and money on any audit. In closing, I am requesting 2 things, either a forensic audit or an in-depth state auditor's office audit. Secondly, because of the sequence of events in the last few years, it is my opinion your inaction may have opened up the city to possible litigation. Therefore, I am asking you to resign as mayor. We must head into 2025 under knowledgeable and trustworthy leadership. Respectfully, Sharon Dolan.
Thank you, Mrs. Dolan. And if you will email me that letter, then I will, along with the city manager, be happy to meet with you and go over that line by line if you would like to. Next name on my list is Janet Aguirre.
Be more delicate than my daughter. Let's see if I can do this. Okay. Janet Aguirre, Sunnyside. Tonight you're reviewing a budget for the 2025 that once again offers no plan to fund the pool. I understand that balancing a budget is a difficult task, but now that other portions of the budget have been allocated, I urge you to take the time to find the funding necessary to operate the pool in 2025. The community has made it clear that this is a top priority, and you have an opportunity to listen and respond. Comments have been made that this is the issue you are hearing about the most. Why do you think that is? At the last meeting, the Public Works Director outlined the pool's need for repairs, yet instead of presenting solutions, he offered excuses, claiming the recent financial situation prevented action. Instead of excuses, let me give you some facts. In May, ARPA funding was confirmed and allocated specifically for pool improvement, providing the city with the resources needed to address its long overdue maintenance needs. This is separate from the grant that covered repainting the bathhouses. Despite having funding secured, no action was taken before the summer season began. What about from June 2nd to the 24th, when the pool was closed for over 3 weeks for pump repairs and the pool was emptied? This was a critical window and an ideal time to complete necessary maintenance without disrupting operations, but it was completely overlooked. The Public Works Director failed to act, wasting the ideal time and resources. The pool closed on August 10th, yet no supplies for repairs were ordered. By the end of August, the city became aware of its financial deficit. But this timeline makes it clear that the deficit cannot be used as an excuse. ARPA funding was available for months earlier, and the opportunity in June was squandered. In September, fence construction at the pool began, proving that some improvements were still possible despite the city's financial challenges. Why was the fence more important than repairing what could keep the pool in operation? This raises serious concerns about the prioritization of the city resources and leadership commitment to serving the community's needs. Now, I'd like to take a moment to thank the Deputy Mayor for taking the time to actually sit down with the swim team and to search for solutions to reduce operating costs. City Manager, hearing you have looked into a few avenues has us hopeful, yet it still doesn't change things now. Council, the community is speaking loud and clear. With close to 700 signatures on our petition, why are you even considering approving this budget? As my daughter said at the last meeting, don't just pass a budget because it's due. Pass a budget that is well thought out and supports the community you serve. This is your opportunity to show true leadership by prioritizing what matters most to the people you serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Next name is Britton Moore.
Good evening, everyone. Britton Moore, Sunnyside. Actually, what Ms. Aguirre just said was very kind and very eloquent. I would like to say that the public isn't going to be as kind and as eloquent. We all know why in this room the pool is up for being shut down. We understand. But the public does not. And it's really difficult to educate them, to beg them to come to a meeting, to listen to the meetings online, to be involved. You all are going to be under fire if, gosh forbid, the pool doesn't open. You then have to explain, because they're really going to blame you. They're going to blame everybody up here. I am not going to ask for a forensic audit. I'm going to beg you for one. Because in the future, you're going to have to explain to the public who is not always up to speed on what's going on. Mr. City Manager mentioned, I think last week, that we're this close to being Mabton. That's scary, but it's very eye-opening. We all just probably read in the paper what happened to Benton County, the fire department. There are things that went on here at the city that I just don't understand. Last year, Tom came up with a whiteboard with all the names of all the people who were educated, had degrees, who quit, who left Sunnyside. We lost a lot of really great talent. We can't let that happen again. I don't think that it will. But they left for a reason. Again, I'm begging you for a forensic audit, even if you just start with 1 year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next name is Monica Niemeyer.
Monica Niemeyer, Sunnyside, and oh, Jackie, do you need to, oh, wait. I got my glasses on so I can see it. Are you good? Okay, thanks, Jackie. Monica Niemeyer, Sunnyside, and just to touch briefly on what Britt had to quickly mention about Benton County, and if all of you saw it. I believe it's a Benton County Fire Department. It's a most recent article. They actually had the state auditor come in and help them do not quite a forensic audit. Debbie would probably know the language better than me, but come in and find where there was embezzlement, fraud, misappropriation of funds. That was a service the state auditor did, and they went quite a few years back. And I think the big takeaway from that was, the state auditor, they do the same thing as they do for us, and they didn't catch it. But when asked, they went back and they found it, meaning it is possible. There is a resource. Now, what triggered that? What are the costs? I don't know. But the bottom line is it is a resource. And I think it's something that we're all looking for and looking for answers. And then on that, the actual reason I came up was about the Rules Committee. So at the last meeting when I asked about, talked about Tom and Britt and Amy, Mayor Boersma, you had stated that a year and a half ago that was taken away and changed. However, there's no mention of that in these rules, and the SMC isn't updated to reflect that. So as when you and I talked afterwards, and thank you for talking with me afterwards, I did tell you my concern with that is the fact that you took action before you were allowed to have action. Meaning, right here is the perfect example. If you stated the reason you weren't following up with these candidates for to sit on the committee is because you were told not to, but it's not clarified in the rules, and the Rules Committee does not supersede our SMCs, and the SMCs don't outline that. So you took action deciding to do that without approval of their action. So in this, let's give this scenario. Let's say in the Rules Committee, they vote, it was in there, and they voted no against it. They wanted to keep it with the mayor appointing. You'd already taken that action. So that's the issue I think we're coming across time and time again, whether it be the Rules Committee or spending or, just working with vendors. We're taking action without the approval of the action. I think this is a great example to actually sit down and look at what our SMCs say and ask if we're following them. The Rules Committee, what's in the rules, do not supersede the SMC. Another one is allowing, non-residents. I know we've talked about this, but again, that's not listed in the SMC. It states you have to be a resident to sit on that committee. So either please follow the SMCs that are outlined that we are to govern by, or change the SMC. And the last thing I wanted to ask was consideration for a disclosure for those sitting on the committees. I'm sorry, to understand that they can't receive payments for sitting on those committees. I'll explain that more in an email to all of you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Niemeyer. Next name and last name on my list is Tiffany Wise.
Hi, my name is Tiffany Wise, and I've lived in Sunnyside pretty much my entire life. I would grow up here, and I have benefited from all the wonderful things that Sunnyside has given to me. And one of those things was riding my bike to the pool every day during the summer. And the pool has given my children a wonderful place to be. They've been on swim team since they were itty bitty. And it also gives us adults a chance to serve and to volunteer our time and to support the other kids in our community. And I know that our community is struggling more and more. I know living here my whole life, we've struggled with gangs and crime. And when I was young, gangs were a big problem. And then we overcame it. And now it seems like it's coming back again. And I just want you to remember, we have to give something good for our kids to do. And the Parks and Recs department, as long as I've been in Sunnyside, has slowly been reduced more and more over time. And now pretty much all we have left is the pool. What are our kids going to do during the summer if they don't have a place to go? To swim, to be active? I'm just worried. I'm just being a humble mom. I don't know a lot about your budget, and I know you're up against something really hard. And I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just here as a mom saying the pool is important. And if you need us moms and dads to be a partner with you and say, hey, we don't have the money, but let's get in it together with elbow grease and fundraising, and you figure out a little bit on your side and we figure out a little bit on our side. We need to work together because it's for our kids and our community. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who came up and spoke this evening. We will obviously be talking more about the budget a little bit later on in the meeting. But yes, we all hear what you have to say, and some of the decisions and some of the things that are before us are even painful to contemplate. So we feel the pain as well, and we're trying to do our best on that. So moving forward on the active agenda, 2025 Yakima Valley Conference of Governments, YVCOG, general membership appointments, a voting primary and alternate council representatives to YVCOG's general membership. So every year, the cities in the valley have a representative on the Yakima Valley Council of Governments. And we have Miss Hart, who is on our executive board. And then we have a regular member who is a voting member. And then we have an alternate. And our voting member, I believe, is Miss Ripley. And our alternate is Miss Frausto. Am I correct? Yes, I thought I looked that up correctly. And so we need to, by the beginning of February, appoint a member to be on that board. And so we have an option. We can continue unchanged, or we can select another council member to serve in that position. And so the first thing I want to ask is, Ms. Ripley, are you willing to continue on that board as the voting member?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Frausto, are you willing to serve as an alternate?
Yes, if nobody else wants to.
Okay. So then the question is, do we have somebody else who is desperately dying to serve on the YVCOG as an alternate or voting member? I don't see anybody rushing to that, to get their hand up or to get my attention. So council, is there any objection to maintaining the same representation that we've had this past year?
No objection?
No objection.
Hearing no objection, then are we able to pass that, Ms. Renteria, as a no objection? Do we need, okay. So with no objection, then our appointments for the YVCOG will remain unchanged for the 2025 year. And thank you for your willingness to serve in that. The YVCOG is probably a little bit more important of a position than I think sometimes that we think it is. We have the opportunity to have a big impact on our valley through the YVCOG, and your involvement in that is an incredible part of that. So thank you for being willing to do that. So let me make my notes there. All right, item B, resolution suspending utility late fees. Approve a resolution suspending the late fees for the utility bill that covers the usage period October 16 through November 15, 2024. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll let Debbie Zabel talk a little bit about this, but I want to give the public a narrative, kind of how we got to this point and why we're doing this. So in conjunction with the migration back to Springbrook Express bias, which Springbrook is.
Sorry.
Hold on one second. I'll let
Just hold it all the way down.
Hold it all the way
I
down.
want to give
Which one?
the public a
Well, that makes
narrative,
it
kind of how we got to this point and why we're
Can you
doing
reach it,
this.
George? There we go.
I get all the rest of it.
Sorry, sir, go ahead.
I thought I was back in my TV days and when the IFB. Yeah, well, I'll toss it to you for weather, Councilwoman Hart. Thanks. We're both former journalists, so. So what I was saying, so Springbrook Express and Bias, that's our financial software. So what we were in the process of migrating the city's on-site server to a cloud server platform. So long story short, the migration was planned for a specific day and time to allow for the month's utility billing to be processed and sent to the city's contracted billing processor. The time of the migration was inadvertently moved up and resulted in the month's utility billing being impacted and delayed. The delay adversely impacted customers that the number of days between receiving utility bill and the due date was actually decreased. So some of our customers would inadvertently get a late payment. So we want to avoid that. Anytime you do a migration and an upgrade, things can get a little wonky, and we don't necessarily want to penalize our customers for that. But we do need to go through a process where the council approves that, because I don't have that authority to do that. So I'll let our deputy city manager talk a little bit about the process and anything she may want to add.
Right. Thank you, City Manager. You did a
Thanks.
very good job on that. So as City Manager Gonzalez said, we are transitioning back to our original software, but part of that is to move it to the cloud, and that's going to alleviate us from having our server, our software on an in-house server. It's going to allow for folks to be able to access it in buildings that don't have access to that City Hall server. So resulting in more department directors and managers having better access to the city's financial to manage their budgets and keep an eye on what's going on. And then it will eliminate the amount of staff time our IT team has to be working on bias. So that's a big savings for them. But as City Manager Gonzalez said, we did have a hiccup in the process, and it did result in a large number of utility bills being sent out late. And so, it's hard enough sometimes for folks to be able to make their payment within the amount of time that they're given. But if we shrink that down and say now you have 5 days to come up with the money that's at Christmas, it's not going to go over very well. So to be able to suspend those fees just for this month would be appreciated.
Council members, questions or comments? Go ahead, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
The number that, the days that decrease, is that a permanent move or is it just for that
It
month?
was just during this one time.
One time?
Mhm.
Okay, so it'd be the same for going forward?
Correct. They'll be processed without the impact going forward.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Ripley, you had a question?
No.
Okay, Mr. Beeler.
Do we have an estimate on how much this is going to cost?
It's on here. It'll be about $8,000 of loss of revenue.
And that'll pay everybody back for getting a cancellation fee?
Well, they just won't pay it.
Oh, okay.
Further questions?
Could you repeat that number?
8,000 approximately.
So this that's $8,000 of late fees that has been billed, correct? Or that has been received?
No, that's the potential of late fees that we would not receive. by
Okay.
Spending the late fees.
Okay,
Potential.
good enough. All right, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Is that an average of what we receive in late fees then, the 8,000 more or less?
It is an average.
An average of what we receive?
And
So,
it just kind of depends on usage and
Mhm.
how much the utility bills are and where people are financially in their own personal lives, and it's holiday seasons, and that's a time when we see a lot of late fees.
And it's $10
Correct.
per customer. So it's about 800
Yeah.
customers that
Yes.
it affects. Okay.
So technically, we'd just be waiving it for this last month of December.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, further questions or comments? All right, hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we've got motion by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Hart to approve a resolution suspending the late fees for the utility bill that covers the usage period October 16 through November 15, 2024. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Mr. Beeler,
Yes.
Ms. Vasquez,
Yes.
Ms. Ripley,
Yes.
Ms. Frausto,
Yes.
Mr. Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Ms. Hart,
Yes.
and I too vote yes. Motion passes. Item C, resolution regarding potential claims and other issues regarding water usage. Approve a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute settlement agreements. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we were notified of a potential claim and other issues regarding water usage for the properties located at 1404 and 1409 Sing Lane here in Sunnyside. And this was a period between May of 2016 through September of 2023. In your packet was the attached resolution that authorizes myself to execute a settlement agreement for Francisco Sanchez and also Cassandra Ambris and I can have Raul give a little bit of context, but I've been working with Ben and the finance office and thank you to Debbie and her team because it's been pretty painstaking to kind of figure this out. So sort of the Cliff Notes version is many years ago when this development was built, the information got crossed. So one property was essentially paying for the other property's water bill. One owner was using much more than the other. So, and apparently this has been ongoing for several years. So I was approached originally by Deputy Mayor to work with, Cassandra and I have to say, thank you. She is a patient woman and she was very kind through the process. So I really appreciate that. We always don't get that when we're trying to help somebody. So I was really appreciative of her approach to it. So what we're doing is essentially waiving the debt for one that owed extra because we acknowledge it was our fault. I mean, there's no way that we were not at fault in this particular case. We acknowledged it. We worked with Ben, and I honestly didn't see any other options as a city manager other than to say, you know what, we made a mistake. Thank you for your patience, and we'll honor this process. And so Cassandra will, correct me if I'm wrong, either have the option to get a credit, or we could cut her a check if she so chooses. So basically, council, what this does, it starts everyone at square zero. We hit the reset button, and I think all parties are very happy with sort of the way we've gone about this approach. It's, it always takes longer than you want it to, but we've gotten to where we're all in agreement. But that's sort of it. Raul can answer any questions, Ben and Debbie, that you may have.
Okay, council, questions or comments for any of these individuals? Ms. Ripley.
Do we have this fixed so it doesn't happen again?
We do. And I've personally met with Raul's staff and we went over how it happened, and it was a new development, and it simply when it got reported back to utility billing, whoever was the tech out there literally just handed the wrong information to our utility billing, and it got billed that way. And it, and I think to our credit, we went out there, we checked if there were leaks, we did everything you possibly could, and it was like playing Clue, and we finally got to where we figured it out. But it definitely was on our side, and sometimes those things happen.
So if I can add to that, so yeah, there was a few things. One is the staff that we have now were not the staff that was here back in 16 when the development went in. So that none of them had any history to what was with the meters, and they did go out to check for water leaks. There was no water leaks until finally one of the staff members looked at the number, the serial number on the water meter, and then started looking down the street, and then way down was the other one. All the numbers on the serial numbers were the same except for the very last one. So whether that what confused staff back then, so that they were so close. And so then, and then secondly, I think Miss
Embreeze.
Sandra Embreeze. She went through different things and on her side to try to figure it out before she came to the city. I believe she tried doing a sprinkler system and tried different things, thinking it was something in her home until finally it came back. And so so now, yes, that's something that staff can look at closer now too, that's something that could happen, is that the meter itself, nothing wrong with it. It's just been put somewhere else and it created confusion.
Well, I'm glad we're doing the right thing.
I agree with you.
Mhm.
Further questions or comments?
No, just thank you all. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just thank you all for taking initiative and really putting forth customer service and we acknowledge where there's holes and then we work towards repair. So I really want to extend a lot of gratitude to the team. Thank you, Mr. City Manager.
Ms. Vasquez, you have any comments or questions?
No, just thank you as well for getting this through and smooth it out.
Okay, Mr. Deputy Mayor?
Do we know if the serial number on the meter is also on the utility bill? Is it placed on there as well?
Well, they're crisscross. That's why the meter that the utility bill has is not the same one that was at the house. That's why they were.
But it is on the utility bill. The
They
meter.
got fixed, yes.
No, the number, the actual number, it's not printed on there?
But it's in our system.
Gotcha. That's okay.
And this is an easy problem to have because it's easy to transpose the numbers when you're entering it in. I watched the guy at the post office do it this past week. I was mailing something to my daughter in Iowa and I happened to notice the town was completely different than where she lived. And I questioned him on that and it turned out he'd entered the zip code wrong. So it's something that can happen. I feel bad for these folks that it took so long for us to figure out what it was. This has been going on for years. And I don't know when they first brought it to our attention, but it was a pretty complete investigative job by our guys to get that one figured out. So kudos to them. And yeah, I agree with my colleagues that at least we are owning up to it and taking the right steps. So, all right. So I have a motion before it's a suggested motion. I don't have a motion before me yet, but our motion on this one needs to state in order for it to be correct that Mr. Sanchez's utility debt is being written off in the amount of $2,043.17. And Ms. Ambreese's utility account will receive a credit of $1,813.82. Okay, so that's the suggested motion from staff in order to make sure that everything is correct. What is the desire of council on this item?
So move. So we don't have to repeat all of that.
Second.
And who was that second? Was that
Second.
Mr. Beeler? Okay. All right, we've got and I will repeat it anyway into the record. Motion by Counselor Hart, second by Counselor Beeler to write off Mr. Sanchez's utility debt in the amount of $2,043.17 and Ms. Ambreese's utility account to receive a credit of $1,813.82. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Counselor Beeler?
Yes.
Counselor Vasquez?
Yes.
Counselor Ripley?
Yes.
Counselor Fausto?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Counselor Hart?
Yes.
And I too vote yes, the motion passes. Thank you. Item D, ordinance adopting the 2024 budget amendment number 3. Adopt an ordinance amending the 2024 budget. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'll read a little bit of the summary and I'll toss it over to Debbie, who's been working on this. So RCW 35.33.121 limits annual expenditures to the amounts appropriated for each fund in the budget for the current fiscal year. Consistent with these provisions, the City of Sunnyside adopts its budget at the fund level. Budgets adopted at the fund level have an enabling clause in the ordinance or the budget exhibit that describes appropriations by fund without providing any further detail within that fund or department. Staff has re-reviewed and has revised the final projections for 2024. Upon review and discussion of the proposed amendment, staff recommends council adopt this year-end budget amendment prior to December 31st to prevent the possibility of having expenditures exceed appropriations in any fund, as an amendment cannot be adopted after the end of the year. So, Mr. Mayor.
All right. And Ms. Sable, do you have any comments you want to make before we open it up for questions and comments?
Sure, I'd like to do that. I was very happy to say last week that we were going to put 2024 to bed, but now I had to take it back out again. So I was kind of bummed about that this week. And I had been so focused on the general fund that I didn't pay attention to the fact that we bought a fire engine this year. And so that was not accounted for in our budget. We didn't originally budget for it. It was something that happened after the fact. The updated final budget sheet is what you do have on your paper, and that is the correct number for the 2024 budget will end up being $53,663,789.
Right. Council members, questions or comments on this item? All right, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Ms. Sables, should this be an amendment to last week's?
Yes, it is. This is the third budget amendment of the year.
So it should it list last week's ordinance number, not 2024-15?
That is last week's ordinance number.
Is it?
The first one, the one that we did last week, the budget, it was like 2024-03. Because the budget amendment, the first budget amendment was done in April.
Okay.
And then we did it last week. So that gave it a new ordinance number. So now we're going to revise last week's ordinance with this new ordinance.
Gotcha.
Mr. Beeler.
Online on our website, the numbers on those sheets are completely different.
Correct. So what you have you have a
Paper
hard
one's the
copy.
correct one?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
The one that you handed us tonight.
We just got this evening.
Yes. Mhm.
So the one from last week was, the reduction was 9,000. I'm sorry, $894.79, right? So this time we're looking at budget reduction for this number C of $7,065.
So this one, we're looking at increasing it $815,000 to account for the fire equipment that was purchased this year.
Mr. Beeler.
Okay.
Didn't we finance that?
I thought we financed
No, that was paid for with cash. And the chief is here. No,
No,
we paid for that.
we paid for it with
No, the fire engine was purchased on a,
The loan.
correct,
a loan.
Well, this
So
is
these
the
are for
ambulance?
correct.
Ambulances. Yes,
Ambulances was
ambulance.
paid cash from the enterprise account.
This is for 2 ambulance, yes.
Okay.
Okay, then pieces are starting to fall into place. I didn't think we had paid cash for the fire truck.
Yeah, I
It was the
didn't either, because it would have been a huge,
So we paid for one, we paid for 2. We've received 1. We're waiting for 1 to come in June or July of next year.
Correct.
Mm.
And those purchases were approved in 23. I think, if my memory serves on that one, but I'd have to go back and look.
No, the ambulance was broke down.
That's what it was. You're right.
and that's why we had to do that.
All right, further questions or comments on this item? All right, what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to approve?
Second,
All right, we got a motion by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Hart to adopt an ordinance amending the 2024 budget. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Mr. Beeler,
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez,
Yes.
Councilor Ripley,
Yes.
Councilor Frausto,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Councilor Hart.
yes.
I too vote yes. Hopefully this is the last one because otherwise we've got to have an emergency meeting just before Christmas Eve.
I think we're in good shape for that, though, right?
Change pages. Item E, resolution obligating the remaining state and local fiscal recovery funds. Approve a resolution obligating all unspent state and local fiscal recovery funds to be used for general government administration. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At the April 1st, 2024 study session, council allocated the remaining $2,427,600 in state and local fiscal recovery funds authorized by the American Rescue Plan Act, commonly called ARPA, and adopted Resolution 2024-20 at the April 8th, 2024 regular council meeting authorizing the commitment and expenditure of funds for community improvement, health and safety, safe community programs, utility billing assistance, COVID emergency response, and staffing for the future. At the October 7th, 2024 special meeting, council received a presentation on the financial condition of the general fund that identified a major revenue source used to balance the 2024 budget was not going to be realized. To meet the general fund obligations, the city manager, myself, initiated a spending freeze and to utilize the remaining funds for municipal purposes. This initiative has resulted in the general fund not requiring an inter-fund loan to meet its financial obligations. City Council is required to obligate all remaining funds of these ARPA or SLFRF funds before December 31st of 2024. The proposed resolution authorizes the final obligation of unspent funds to be used for general government administration operations and administrative facilities. Budget amendment was approved at the December 9th, 2024 regular council meeting that included the reallocation of these funds within the general fund. Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you, sir. Council members, questions or comments on this item? And I'm assuming, Ms. Zabel, you're able to answer questions as well through direct. Okay. Questions or comments on this item? Mr. Bueller.
Are we sure we have accounted for all the ARPA money? After this is done, this is everything?
Yes, this is basically a resolution that is going to be a blanket to spend those funds for general services.
Okay, further questions?
So,
Sorry.
so basically, all the things that we spent all last summer, going over and over and over about allocating to the museum or the pool or to the community center, the senior center, dog shelter, all of that money that we thought we were allocating ARPA monies to is now, all of that money is, all those
Mostly.
are mostly gone and all put into the general fund to cover the general fund,
Correct.
correct?
And
And
I
that's
do-
the 2 million.
Yes. And I want to make sure that council understands that, there is no guarantee that we're not going to have to pay that money back. I think we need to have the understanding that there is a potential for this to have to be paid back. The only way for this to have not happened would be to go back to January and to have either done something different to create the revenue that was needed to cover the expenses, or to have cut all expenses in order to be able to make it to the end of the year. So, and folks did speak to, there was ARPA money designated to fix things, and there was. Whatever money had not been used, we need to use it to basically make payroll. So even if we didn't do this resolution, we still would not have been able to spend the ARPA money the way that it was intended, because there's no money to pay all the other general governmental expenses.
So the way we had it, excuse me.
Go ahead.
So the way that we had it set out, like the items that we talked about that were on our list, that we'd all agreed that those were the things where we wanted to do the money, were correct ways to spend the money.
Correct.
And you think that what we're talking about today is not?
It may not be.
May not be.
May not be. So had the Munson property sold, we would not be in the position we're in right now. the ARPA money that you folks, I watched the council meeting and, you know, what everyone wanted to have happen. And had the Munson property sold, all the money for the ARPA would have been spent on the projects that council had elected to have done. But we don't have that money. So, but we did not discover that until 8 months into the year. That was way too many months had gone by to be able to stop spending money that we didn't have.
Right. So this
Okay.
basically then balances last year's.
2024.
Okay, it doesn't do anything for 2025.
No.
No.
So that's what we're talking about.
Right.
We are
This-
talking
Right. It
only
is-
This one.
We're only
right.
talking about.
Only talking
2024
about
right now.
2024 monies.
25 comes
And
up, yeah.
we are project, you know, the final budget amendment for 2024 is giving us a small amount of fund balance to carry forward into 2025.
Okay, okay.
So I guess that was the question Ms. Hart asked, I guess was my question as well, is to assure that we're within the bounds of the rules of the ARPA funds in using it for this. And you're saying that it's a little bit uncertain whether we're within the rules for the use of that money, correct?
What you had done was in the rules.
Right, but I'm talking about what we're talking about doing right now might be outside the rules of how we can spend that
Well,
money.
we don't have, it's gonna, you know, you had a nice list that had all the projects on there and the dollar amounts. Well, the list now is gonna, you know, basically consist of salaries of staff and general operations of City Hall, police and fire. They're not specific projects,
Right, and what ARPA wanted was specific projects,
specific
correct?
projects.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that's my concern is all of a sudden we're going to get a bill. Yeah,
I just, you know, it might not. I don't have an answer for that. We don't have, you know, being able to utilize the ARPA funds as revenue loss was something that came later, and they did that a couple years after the fact. And cities were able to take up to the $10 million of revenue loss. And one of the things to use it for is for general services, which is basically what you allocated those to. So what we don't have attached to this is a list of allocations of where they're going, where this remaining money is going to be spent.
so essentially the
So,
allocations
I
are going to be salaries.
It could be, right. I mean, I still need to go through and come up and figure out how to allocate this to come up with a nice list to be able to give to the auditor when they come next year to audit this program.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Yes, sir, you may.
I wanted to add Ben to the conversation because he's been doing some research. We wouldn't be the only city that's been in this position. And I think there's a couple, Seattle, I think you mentioned today, and Portland that has used the ARPA funding to plug these gaps. So essentially the revenue loss portion is the important thing to remember, and the ability to use those. Can you speak to that a little bit, Ben?
Well, just in general terms, the allocation has to happen by the end of the year for ARPA fund. Several municipalities are doing exactly what you're doing or what's being proposed right now. So there is an allocation on the books as to where this money should be going because that has to be done before the end of 2024 for all of this. Is there a possibility of disgorgement? Maybe in this situation later, depending on audits, but we're not solely the only city doing this right now. And that's to make sure the allocation occurs before the end of the year, because if it doesn't, then you do have to return those funds going forward.
And not to make light of it, but you know, we're one city out of every single city in the United States. So, you know, there's going to be a lot of other cities that are probably in the same position just due to lack of staff in general to be able to account for what they have, because there's some cities that have just a few staff people. So, and I'm not trying to make light of it at all, but I would not, in good conscience, be able to present this to you without saying there is a possibility. And I don't want it to be, you know, come next year, if something happens and it's like, oh, I neglected to tell you that part.
Well, I think that's,
Okay.
So,
I guess, yeah, and I guess I appreciate that. And, I guess my first reaction, and I don't know how other council members feel about it, but my first reaction is, okay, that's fine for other cities. My main concern is Sunnyside. We've got enough of a mess on our hands right now to add to it. But at the same time, if there's a precedent and we can look at it and say, yeah, here's why we did it. Either that or a lot of us are going to be happy to pay some money back, and that's going to be a whole different issue. Council members, any further questions or comments on this item? Ms. Ripley.
I appreciate your honesty.
Ditto.
Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So if we do have to pay it back, it wouldn't be until after an audit in 2025.
so, right, and I'm not sure when the wrap up will be for the federal government in general. So the state auditors are auditing the different, and reporting back to the feds. So
Okay.
we won't know until then.
Yeah. No, I appreciate your transparency with that.
Ms. Hart.
right now, we're just talking in terms of audits. Right now, we're doing 23.
Correct. We just finished
So we,
the financial, well, actually, they did a brief audit of financials, and they were focusing on our federal single audit. And they're going to come back in next year to do our accountability audit.
okay, and that'll be also for 23.
That'll be for 23, and they'll probably add 24 in there. We've had a lot of discussions with the auditor. We've had very frank discussions and shared a lot with the auditors.
Because I was thinking if we didn't do that, then it would be 26 before the audit for 24 would happen.
There'll be 25 for 24.
25 for 24.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks
And
for clearing that.
if I could just make a note, even if the state auditor's office is doing an audit on any jurisdiction, the jurisdiction pays for that. They don't audit anything for free.
Can you give what that amount is for the
So
regular state audit?
for a full audit, for a federal single audit, along with an accountability audit, it's about $50,000.
So that's the one, and then for the second one is the same amount?
Is a combined
combined
amount. For the
amount?
federal single accountability and financials, it's about $50,000.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Further questions or comments?
Mr. Mayor, if I just may add one thing, I've checked with some old colleagues, and in terms of the feedback that got through Ben is the uses are fine. It's just the only thing that might be questioned is the timing. So and that is the perspective. A couple of former city managers that have been through the ARPA process. I mean, I think you could also make the counter argument if we would have used these funds initially the way they were intended, and I don't want to go back and question what we used them for, but we could argue revenue loss. And the fact that we're in revenue loss, I think, is a pretty good use of it because, the budget wasn't, really, in my estimation, accurate what was presented to the council. So we were really in debt when we started out 2024. So I mean, we can argue there was revenue loss there. So anyway, again, I don't want to play lawyer up here, but that is kind of my thinking, in terms of moving forward with this process.
Thank you.
And in the resolution, we are stating that, and this is taken from the ARPA rules that, we're in a unique opportunity to cover temporary operating shortfalls until economic conditions and operations normalize. And that does summarize our position right now.
Right. See that?
Yes, it does. Okay.
Okay.
Council members, if there's no further questions or comments on this item, what is the desire of council on this one?
Move to approve.
Second.
All right, we got a motion by Councilor Ripley, second by Councilor Hart to approve a resolution obligating all unspent state and local fiscal recovery funds to be used for general government administration. Is there any debate on this item? Hearing none. Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Ms. Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Frausto?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councilor Hart?
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Motion passes. All right, item F has been removed. Item G, council rules of procedure. Council members, you all should have received via email a copy of our rules of procedure as modified after our last meeting where council talked about it. Our city clerk has gone through all of the notes that were taken, and because she wasn't unable to go through the audio or the video of the meeting because it was compromised because of Zoom, that Zoom hack that happened. That was,
That's right.
yes. So that was all compromised, unfortunately, but she did go through Ms. Navarro's notes who was here acting as city clerk at that time. And I believe she covered it pretty well. Did you have all an opportunity over the weekend to read through the changes that were made? And are there any comments or questions on those changes?
Hang on a minute.
I was.
Go ahead, Ms. Frausto, if you have a question.
I'm eager to jump in, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I did have some comments and I was looking through my notes to give y'all a page number. I believe they.
Mayor, while Councilor Frausto looks for that, did you see my notes in the email? That there were some things that looked like they were pending feedback from the attorneys, and then the moment of silence being switched back to the invocation?
I saw those notes, yes. There are some things that need to be hammered out. So my original intent of having this put on the agenda was not necessarily to vote on it, but to use it as a first reading and then have it come back. In the agenda today, it comes out looking for, as a resolution for vote. We can discuss this tonight and table it for a future meeting, or we can approve it this evening. It is up to council. But there are a couple items that do still need perhaps a legal opinion, and then we do need to clarify a couple of things. But
I move that we table it until we get it right.
I agree.
okay. Ms. Frausto, you may ask your question.
So what's it gonna take to get it right? Because the last time that we did this, I think, how many times has this been in front of us now? I think it's been a few
This
times.
is our
and
third time.
This is a third time now in front of us. And I thought between then and now that there would have already been the discussion. I remember that specific question I asked you. I think, I don't remember which number it was, but it talked about how we couldn't use, or city council members, mayor, deputy mayor, couldn't use any of the community property to engage in campaign events, things like that, right? And I remember. Correct. Yeah, ballot initiatives, anything like that. So those conversations haven't been had in order to bring this back to the last best and final version.
Correct. And that's why my intention was to do it as a first reading so that we can look through it and make the adjustments as necessary. I didn't think there were a ton of them that still needed to be discussed, but I don't know if you had a chance to comment on any of that.
The city council asked that I.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
The council asked that I review the issue regarding campaigning, as well as use of public facilities, for that. So we did a memorandum for the city council to review regarding our discoveries on that going forward, and whether that's reflected or not, or in opposition to what was being proposed in the rules here. So it didn't appear to be. And so I think that's been cleared up as far as use of facilities.
Okay. And that's cleared up in the document?
Yes.
Okay. And Ms. Frausto, you agreed that it's cleared up in the document? I mean, does it answer your question?
For that particular one, it looked like it did, but
Okay.
there was some other comments, I think, that were thrown out specifically around majority plus one and striking the language to only state majority vote. If that's specifically for the removal of the mayor or deputy mayor from their position. I think I'm looking at page 39, and the language still remains super majority or majority plus one.
I'm trying to see where 39 is here.
I don't have page numbers on my.
Yeah, I don't either.
Can you give a section number? 9 point.
Oh, 14. And what?
9 or is it 8?
I'm looking at page 38 through 39.
Can you give a paragraph number?
Yes, it's 9.6.
Thank you. 9.6 and on. So, and the reason that stayed in there as a decision by council is because the committee was divided on that one as well. And so it needed council guidance on that before we could make a final recommendation. And so that's why that one was up in the air. And again, that's why I kind of thought this would be a good first reading to go through it. The process was kind of complicated because our city clerk, who is the one who does all the work on this, was also gone for 2 weeks. And so that slowed the process down just a little bit, but.
Up here, 9.6. Council disciplinary procedures. Yes. So how do we want to do this? And do we want to start from the top of the document and go through it again? Line item by line item? That ring a bell, Debbie?
We can. Does council want to go through this paragraph by paragraph?
I feel like we've already done this.
I feel we've done that. What the big questions were is like city clerk mentioned was on the invocation. Do we want to bring the invocation back as a part of our meeting? And if nobody is there, we can go with a moment of silence. That was one. And the other one was the majority of vote versus a supermajority vote. I know Deputy Mayor, in areas where the state law, the RCW does not require a supermajority vote, would like to strike all supermajority votes. Other members would like to see a supermajority on most things. But that, again, these are council's rules of procedure and council gets to vote on these. One member doesn't get to take control of this. So we can talk about that. And I'm sorry, Ms. Renteria, I don't have the email in front of me at this point. So can you refresh our memory on that email?
So based on the notes that I received, 8.5, the word mayor was replaced with council, and I can go here. Let me go one item. Right here, mayor, council, the word mayor was taken out and council was added. 9.1. Nine point one says that the word state needed to be changed to state, but I could not find where it said state, so I just left it at that. 9.4, the word operated was changed to operate. I could not find, and I couldn't find that it needed a correction. So I left it. 9.5 noted that additional research was needed by the attorney and that he would bring back the opinion in 2 weeks regarding this section. And it looks like he's stated he did. And so 9.65, they added a executive session RCW, which we added here.
5. I got a 4.
And then 9.67, remove this number and keep it as 9.66 combined. And that revision was made here by taking this section out. The file that I received was not in fact a Word version. It was a conversion of a PDF to Word, leaving the alignments off. So the numbers have to be manipulated by one by one once I create it to a PDF, unless someone is a Word genius and can help me with that. I've tried rewriting this over, but as you can see, there's page sections that I just can't manipulate.
Jackie,
Yes.
the one I have downloaded doesn't show section 8, and does yours show section 8?
Yeah.
I don't have section 8 either.
I believe what's happened is when I upload to one meeting, it doesn't upload any of the corrections that were made because they need to be approved before they, is what I believe. So, and then also just one thing that I noted was that The Rules Subcommittee had mentioned that they wanted to change the invocation to a moment of silence, and then based off a comment from the public, Mayor stated that that would be switched back to invocation, and I am not sure what the decision was on that.
I think I was going off a consensus of council. I don't think that was a unilateral decision, if I remember correctly. There was no objection at that, I recall, but I'd have to.
Is to be able to have the prayer, if I remember correctly. And if the pastor wasn't here, then we would go ahead with the moment of silence. Isn't that what we talked about?
That was public's concern.
I thought it was the other way around, like leaving it as a moment of silence, but if there was somebody here willing to do invocation, that they would have, we would allow them to approach the podium.
Actually, I actually brought this up and I actually asked why it was striked out. And when I asked, you guys said that you guys meant for it to mean invocation will be the first option, and unless someone wasn't there, then it would be turned into a moment of silence. And that's what had said yes to.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's how I remembered it
That's
as
how
well.
I
So thank you
remember
for
it.
clarifying that.
But
I knew it was one.
it wasn't stated that way though, and when the redlining, it was stating as a moment of silence and everything else was stricken through.
Yes.
Right,
And
that was a suggestion at the last time this came before us. And so somehow or other, and again, because of the corrupted Zoom meeting and all of that, some of this stuff may have been lost. I'm not sure
Translation.
where it would have gone. But I know Lucia took as careful of notes as she could, but we also were overwhelming her with other responsibilities at that time as well. So.
And yeah, so from seeing that point, the 2.162, it looks like that, and that's why I brought it up. And when I brought it up, I recall Mayor Dean and Councilor Hart mentioning that they didn't mean it for it to intend to that sound or seem that way, but that you guys just forgot. You guys didn't realize that you guys had struck it out. That's what you guys had said.
Seems like that.
So,
So this
Mr. Mayor?
really needs
Go
to
ahead,
be
Ms.
redone.
Frausto.
Sorry.
Thank you. How do we want to go about this? Because then we're going to take we're going to take some time to go through it again and then provide suggestions again. Is the intention this time to actually write notes down that Jackie can use to
Yes.
go back?
Well, yes, and we can do that. And that's, again, council, what is your desire this evening? Do you wish to approve this evening, or do you wish to discuss this, or do you wish to bring this forward in a workshop in January and go through this in depth
I think
to get a final copy?
I'm kind of leaning towards January and because if we're going to go line by line by line and get our notes right and hopefully get all the notes right, I think we need to do this.
And so here's
January.
the struggle that we have with January. Ms. Frausto is going to be gone for 2 weeks. Deputy Mayor is going to be gone for a week. I'm going to be gone. So that pushes us to about March before we can get to this, which, okay, but I kind of get the sense that there's some urgency in council members to get this done. And so I don't want to be dragging this out forever either. I did ask the city clerk to put the notes together and compile it for this evening. Again, we can read through it, we can discuss it, and we can move it on for a vote at a later meeting. I don't have any objection to that, but yes, also if council wants to vote on it tonight, I know Mr. Bueller's already expressed that he'd like to table it and move it to another meeting. But I'm willing to do whatever council sees fit on this one. Go ahead, Ms. Frausto.
For me, I think that the sense of urgency here is, first of all, we lost the rules and procedures and by the time that or misplaced them. I know that many of us weren't able to access them, or the community wasn't able to access the exact version that we should have been working out of. I think it also was a point of conversation during y'all's meeting a couple months ago. Remind me if I'm wrong, or correct me if I'm wrong. And really the rules and procedures are there for accountability for us. So if we continue pushing this along and pushing this forward, and then we get to March and we still haven't voted on these, and we're still workshopping these, I mean, the optics don't look good. And then also we don't have guidance on our expectations and agreements amongst us here in council. And what quite literally what we should be held to, those standards that we should be held to, amongst ourselves and then by the community. So the sense of urgency that I have is really just around accountability. I would hate for us to lose these and then not come back to it until springtime. We've gone through this. This is the third time that this has been put in front of us now. I do want to get this right. I'm not trying to speed through it, but I feel like we've had a lot of time to sit with this and to write down our notes. I really just want us to take this seriously, and quite honestly, having to ask and remind you and the committee of why isn't this put in front of us, or why haven't we voted on it, or why aren't we looking at the last iteration of this? It's just, it really takes time and energy, and it's something that just really we could have voted and gotten behind us some time ago, and now we're looking to pick this up again in March. So that's my concern. I don't want to continue putting this into our agenda if we can just actually take time to go through this and actually vote on it.
Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So yeah, Mr. Mayor, if you remember, at our subcommittee meeting, you were open to bring this for a vote January 27th. You said you could leave on vacation on the 28th, but then it was brought up today, last minute. Is that something that we could still do? Bring it for January 27th?
I would move my vacation in order to do that. Yes.
Okay, so do you have time then, I guess, to meet sometime next week, the Rules Committee, and finalize it and bring it forward with the complete version for the 27th?
I have one day next week that I can meet, and I would be happy to use that day to meet.
That way we could clean this up and bring it for a full vote, because the one I have right now in front of me, I downloaded the whole agenda. It doesn't have that section 8, and it doesn't have the budget policies also on there, so.
And mine has something different than what was up on the screen as well. It has the section 8, and it has
Yeah, I had
some
that.
of the budget policy stuff, but it doesn't. So we have different versions somehow or other. I don't know if I'm getting mine. It's just saved on my computer, but I thought I downloaded it off the agenda packet.
I think it's just the way you download it. Ms. Hart has it right there, but she downloads each agenda individually. So
Yeah.
when I download the whole agenda, it's 60, 90 pages, so it left some out
Yeah.
That's what I did was, well, yes.
individually.
So, and I'm willing to do that. You know, if we could have a hard date on that, if we can get the cleanest copy to everybody and we can look at that and maybe email some questions back and forth to the committee. If you have questions, I would not be averse to us meeting as a committee early January as well, if we get some questions between next Monday and then to meet and kind of iron some things out and bring it forward to council for approval. I'd be totally fine with that.
Yeah, I move that we do that.
All right. So do we have a motion to do something along those lines? Because we do have a resolution before us.
I move to table it and bring it back for a full vote January 27th.
You're going to be back?
Yeah, I'll be back.
I second that motion.
All right, so we got a motion by Deputy Mayor, second by Councilor Vasquez to table this item for our January 27 meeting, pending at least one, if not two meetings from the Rules Committee to clean up these copies. Debate on this item? All right, we'll go down the list. Councilor Beeler.
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez.
Yes.
Councilor Ripley.
Yes.
Councilor Fausto.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor.
Yes.
Councilor Hart.
Yes.
And I too vote yes. Motion passes. Council, I am going to say that on the 27th, I do want to have a hard finish on this item. So I'd like to put this one behind us. I know it was slowed down by vacations and other budget concerns and those sorts of things, but yes, this is something that we do need to finish.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I do have a request. Can we take a 5-minute, 10-minute recess before this budget hearing?
Council, is there any objection to a 5-minute recess?
Not at all.
No.
Okay.
All right.
It's going to be good timing.
We will take a 5-minute recess.
Okay, general, there we go. This is. What's this?
All right, we are back in open session with item H, 2025 budget adoption, public hearing, receive public comment regarding the proposed 2025 budget. Before we get started on that one, I'd like to read the documentation that goes with that. This public hearing is being held to receive public comment and recommendations concerning the 2025 budget adoption. Appearance of fairness disclosures. The concern is that this hearing be fair in form and substance as well as appearance. Council members, do any of you have a conflict of interest concerning this issue? Do any of you stand to gain or lose any financial benefit as a result of the outcome of this hearing? If your answer is yes, please speak now. Council members, can you hear and consider this in a fair and objective manner? If your answer is no, please speak now. Audience members, is there anyone in the audience who objects to my participation or any other council member's participation in these proceedings? If there are objections, please approach the microphone, state your name and city of residence, and state your objections. The time is now 7:24 p.m. And this public hearing is now open. And I have the hearing procedure will be this as follows. The city manager will provide staff report on this item. Then any person in the audience wishing to be heard, I will call you up. I have one name on the speaker's list. And then you'll have an opportunity, council, to ask questions and make comments on the item. Okay? So Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the attached proposed ordinance is presented to the City Council for their consideration in adopting the city's 2025 budget. Budget serves to provide a plan balance between available resources and expenses associated with the important and essential functions provided to the community by the city. The purpose of the budget is to, one, it is a legal document that gives the city manager the authority to incur obligations and pay expenses, allocates resources among departments, controls how much each department may spend, projects revenues and other resources available to fund municipal services and capital projects, reflects the city council's priorities and policies. Because of the city's financial position, the 2025 budget is unable to forward important priorities and opportunities the city council would like to provide to the community. City council is to be commended for their efforts to ensure essential city services continue to be provided. Additionally, the council finance committee is to be commended for their deep dive into the budget process and recommendations to assure the highest priority services are maintained in this budget recommendation. As previously noted, it is essential that the city devote at minimum the next 2 years to building back the fund reserves. The GFOA recommended and best practice for fund balance is around 15%. 2025 general fund budget should have a minimum fund balance of $2,425,992 as presented. The fund balance is $280,995. Staff is committed to working with the council finance committee and keeping the council well informed of the ongoing financial condition. Upon adoption, the expenditure levels in the budget are enacted into law through the budget ordinance. The budget is adopted at the fund level, which refers to the appropriation level, i.e. general fund, street fund, water fund, etc. Going forward, based on discussions throughout the budget process, staff anticipates working with the council finance committee, city council through the first quarter of 2025 and evaluating options that could allow important city provided services which could not be funded in this budget to be reconsidered. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. All right, I have one name on the comment list, and that name is Monica Niemeyer. Ms. Niemeyer, if you'd like to come forward.
Yeah, actually, I just initially signed up just to say thank you guys for everything that you guys have done to get us here. But man, it's a crappy place to be. I'm going to be very blunt. City manager, deputy manager, Mr. Riley, thank you all for sugarcoating it the way you did. And yes, I'm going to thank you because I like you. Thank you for wording it the way you did and being very professional in saying it. But the bottom line is, even though other municipalities are where we are, it's not a place to share. It's not a place to be proud of. And I do think we have one exception compared to most. We saw this coming. We knew this. So I really, really hope and can't stress enough and how much I hope there starts to be some accountability and understanding and why we do that, why communication is key, why asking questions is good, while knowledge is your greatest power. That will help you figure things out. You can't be figuring it out for you or how you look or how you're going to be interpreted or how much you want to hold that seat. You have to hold it for us, for those families that are now wanting a pool and can't have it, for individuals that now may lose their jobs, for future people that may lose their jobs, and just for our city to kind of, when things like this happen, it kind of hurts our pride and our hope. And we need to stand strong and hold that together. But that will only work with an acknowledgement of why we're here and an understanding. And quite honestly, for me personally, even a little, I'm sorry I didn't see it coming, for me would go a long way. But I really think, and I told actually Derek this earlier, I think Ms. Hancock's right. I think we now have an administration. We've never had an administration with this much integrity, knowledge, and dedication to doing the right thing for all of us. And considering they're not even from here, that says a lot about these individuals. So thank you to all of them. I think our leadership and guidance is probably the best we've ever had. And I look forward to council now wanting to know and do more. I do appreciate all of your guys' work, but I can't remember who else said it. Britt did. I think it's going to be ugly. You guys are going to have to look in that mirror, and I hope you guys do and acknowledge it. The only way we're going to get through this, if you say, yeah, some of that was on me, not excuses, not someone else, not pretending like you didn't know. Let's just get it done. Let's just all throw up and feel better, for goodness sakes. Just admit what happened. But with that, I do really thank all of you and the finance department. I can't thank you enough, Debbie. So thank you for your brutally honest, and it's not painful. It's that we're no longer in the dark. And so anyways, I think at this point I'll ramble, but thank you.
Thank you. And council, I do want to remind you that we did hear an awful lot of comment that pertains to our budget in the public comment section, and I think we can take that to heart as well. Those comments were no less valid because they were in the public comment section as opposed to in the public hearing. So I think that we need to pay attention to those as well. Council members, do you have any questions or comments on this item? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So I see a difference, I guess, in expenditures of almost $3 million. And that's good, right? That's savings. We're going down instead of going up. And I appreciate that, Ms. Sable and everybody at City Hall. Is this something that we could still improve, or did you go with each department head? I mean, I'm not going to say line by line, but is there room for improvement on some of these?
Is there room to add items in there?
To remove expenditures?
Remove expenditures?
Yeah,
Is there room to remove expenditures?
yeah.
As in, why would we want to remove expenditures?
For example, the general fund, we just approved an amendment, it shows 19 million, right, in 2024. And now in 2025, we're at 16 million. So we're reducing expenditures.
We are, because we did spend ARPA money.
Mm-hmm. So it's just the ARPA money coming out of there?
No, we have more expenditures in 25 than we do in 20. We had more expenditures in 24 than we do in 25.
Okay.
We're basically down to like 2021 level of expenditures.
Okay.
So we are this year for 2025, we will be using fund balance, but we're only projecting to use $152,000 of pending fund balance.
Gotcha.
Further questions? Ms. Frausto.
On the budget, right?
That's what the public hearing is. Yes.
Well, not awesome. Because look, I think over the course of the last weeks, we've been seeing on Facebook how disheartened the community has been with the potential closure of the senior center, community center, the museum, and of course the pool. right? Last week, we had a youth come in and, thank you, Deputy Mayor. We had a youth come in and literally, quite literally, she moved me to tears because it takes a lot for an adult to stand up on that podium and speak to adults up here. I can only imagine what was going through her little body, right? Took a lot of courage. And quite frankly, the reason why it moved me is that our adult actions are impacting the youth in that way. And so we really have to take a moment to reflect on the decisions that we make moving forward because they impact the next generation. I'm looking through this budget. I was looking through this budget. I mean, still, we're not accounting for the swimming pool. And I don't know, and I will turn to the SMEs or the subject matter experts on this, but I don't know what else we can do in order to try to salvage this, or at least potentially allocate some money so we don't move forward with approving a budget that is not going to provide some sense of security to our community, specifically our youth community. I hear about a potential youth curfew. That's in discussion and might hit our desks eventually within the new year. But at the same time, we're not developing more programming that's going to support our youth and really set them up for success. So right now I'm in a moment where, as the youth say, make it make sense to me, because right now it's not. So I know we're still going to go through some discussion, but as it sits right now, I can't bring myself forth to voting to submit a budget when we have had an outpour of community members coming in through that door, when we have had an outcry of comments at that podium and on social media, when I have gotten endless emails, texts, calls about this, when we have youth really asking us adults to take a moment to consider, or take a little longer to consider doing the right thing. So I will turn to the subject matter experts. I know that we have a finance committee. We're doing a great job, and I really, really thank y'all for taking the time that y'all did to really serve community in the way that we should be serving community. And I don't know what it's going to take. If it's going to take maybe a few days to maybe go through this a little bit longer and then bring it back, I mean, I will put myself out here, and if we need a quorum to bring forth another meeting, I commit to doing that. But my heart just can't sit here and vote for something that I feel is really not taking the needs of our community and really just the pleas of our community into consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Frausto. And just to respond just a little bit, I know what normally happens in budgets are regular budget adjustments throughout the year. And I've already put on the agenda for the beginning of March a discussion on the swimming pool, and that will also include discussion on the community center and the senior center as well. I too, and I think all of council shares this sentiment, but I too am unwilling to see our pool closed over the course of this summer. I have commented before, and I will continue to say the benefit my family received from our public pool cannot be measured. Even to this day, my daughters who were coaches on the swim team are training their children to swim, and they comment positively on the swim experience in their life. I don't want to deny that to any kids in Sunnyside. In the same time, I don't want to deny that potential activity. So that will, whatever happens tonight, that will be on the agenda for March to discuss funding for those facilities. Because like you, I am unwilling to see our kids just cut loose and then pay a price with a curfew, but with nothing else to take its place, nothing else to do. I think all of council is experiencing a great amount of pain in considering closing the pool. Nobody's happy about this. And I really want us as a body to commit to finding a way to getting that pool open next summer. And there's different alternatives I think that we can explore. And we need to take that very seriously. It seems as if so often, whether it's a school levy that's not passing or whether it's something with the city budget, it's the children who pay the price. I once read a book where they talk about they sacrifice children in Old Testament times, and I think we still do that. They're the ones who end up paying for that. And so that gets to be something that weighs on my mind fairly heavily. So along with you, I'm committed to seeing these kinds of things happen. I just wanted to respond to that. Other questions or comments from council members? Mr. Beeler.
Rather than just putting one thing on the agenda for March, I think we need to revisit this at least once a month, starting January. We got to plan ahead of time.
I think that's a fair commitment. I just wanted to make sure the pool didn't get left off the agenda, and so I wanted to make sure that happened in March. But I believe that we should look at budget amendments and adjustments. We need to talk about revenue,
Every month.
revenue streams. Where are we getting our revenue from? Can we find any other legitimate ways to, without taxing the citizens to death, what can we do? So.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, Councilwoman Hart wanted to say something.
I was just thinking that the comments that you made at our last meeting referenced going out and looking for monies that we could use to supplement the pool. But I think that's what you were going to
Yes,
talk about.
yeah. So I was just about to talk. So you must have been reading my mind, Councilwoman Hart. So I appreciate it. And I've been making a few notes as we're speaking. So, I mean, as it stands, the budget's balanced. The sad reality really is the past couple of years, revenues, expenses have just outpaced our revenues. I mean, that's the sad reality is, it's just like our home budget. If we spend too much and we don't have the money, you eventually pay the piper. So that's where we are at as a city. Appreciate this council, and I want the public to know this council has worked so hard to look over every rock and really try to balance this. With expenditures outstripping revenues, we've spent down our reserves. That's been well documented. And we simply can't spend more than we have. A lot has been mentioned on the pool. And it hurts my heart what's going on with the pool and community center. And I have worked really hard talking with old colleagues to figure out, what some of the options are. So I looked into the use of community development block grants. This does not seem to be a feasible path. It's something that experts have recommended against trying to do this. What we can do, and this seems to be something that that can be executed quite fast. I do believe that the city would be supportive of this. And we have the option with the utility tax. I think it's really impressive what our youth have done to get these petitions signed. And I think the public has spoken. They really want the pool. I've heard about the community center. So the utility tax right now is something that we could increase. When you increase the utility tax, and I know everybody hates taxes. I hate it. I don't like taxes. But in order to fund the pool, in order to fund the community center, you could increase that. And we have found that 1% will be right around $170,000. So if you increase that by 5%, it's $850,000, 6%, $990,000, 7%, you're over $1 million. And that is a council policy decision. And those monies can be used and funneled into a fund that can support the pool. They can support the community center. And this is a way without us having to go out to taxpayers and putting it on the ballot. And it's a way we don't have to do what we call a levy lid lift. I don't want the public to think this is a way of circumventing them and charging them more. But if the community wants a community center and they want a pool, this is the way to do it. And I can tell you, I've spent a month trying to figure out if we can get grants, if we can do CDBG. I've talked to experts, I've talked to old colleagues, I've talked to city managers, and this is the easiest and best path to get and fund these particular endeavors. It's on the table. I'll have Debbie speak to sort of the mechanics, because it can be done relatively quickly, and it's in your hands, council. And Debbie, can you lend some more context? Because I know you've been through this more than I have.
I can. So council does not have the authority to tax its residency, but it does have the authority to tax businesses, which is what we have a B&O tax for electricity, natural gas, telephone. And then we have a state statute limit of 6% on other outside utilities. On our own utility, we call it utility tax. It's a B&O tax. It's to allow the water department, the sewer department, the garbage department to do business in the city. And so the city charges a utility tax against the utility, and the council can have 100% utility tax. They could have from 0 to 100%. It is up to the city council to decide how much utility tax they're going to charge on their own utilities. There can be a vote by the people to increase the state maximum of 6% on the outside utilities. And the other cities have done that, where they collect 8% utility tax, B&O tax on phone, gas and power, and 6% goes into the general fund, and then the other 2.5% goes into a special fund to fund police officers. That's an option. We can do that too, but the folks would have to do a special election, and folks would have to vote on that, and it would be in the ordinance. It would specify that this extra X% on these utilities is only for recreation and swimming pools. We could do a levy lid lift. That would be another special election where the community could say, yes, recreation programs and swimming pools are so important. We want to be able to increase our property taxes by the state limit of 1%. And we want that to exclusively go to recreation. Now, we did that with the police bond or the fire station bond. So on everyone's property tax statements, there's your general property tax, and then there's another line item for the police bond. And that only goes to pay for that. So there's one option that council has. Well, there's two options. I mean, we can, council can decide to cut something else. There's not a lot, but you can choose to limit, maybe we don't need all the firefighters that we have. Maybe we don't need all the police officers we have. We do need to have building inspection because we do have to provide fire life safety, and we have to follow the state building code, but maybe we're eliminating one code enforcement. Maybe we have no code enforcement. We're eliminating one court clerk. We can't limit any more out of there, or they wouldn't be able to operate clerk. They're probably now going to already have to close court during the week because they don't have enough staff for that. We've limited the 3 recreation positions. The city manager froze the 6 ARPA positions. There was 4 police officers, an HR position, and a planning community development position that was for ARPA, and that was frozen. Those positions have been eliminated out of the budget altogether. So there's no easy decision. It's going to be hard. You will make a group of people angry. If you make this group happy, you're going to make this group angry. No matter what you do, someone's not going to be happy. But there are,
question,
I mean, you can, and just so everyone remembers, we're here to provide municipal services that folks can't provide for themselves. And that is done with their money. It's done with taxes, with user fees, permits. That's where all our money comes from. We don't get any money other than grants and loans from any place else. We get state shared revenue, but that again is all taxpayer money. It's gas tax, it's sales tax, and we get a redistribution back to the city for that.
Okay. Does that answer the question you asked?
No, well, I understand what
Right.
it was saying, but I just think it's crazy that every time, in city, state, federal, there's a deficit. The number one is raise taxes, right?
Right.
Because
Because that's the only place where money comes from.
But we never talk about what makes money, right? The jail, for example, when's the last time we did a cost analysis? Revenues, we are getting about $800,000 worth of revenue each year, and it cost us $1.7 million to run
I
a jail.
separated that out exclusively for that purpose. And so we are doing a cost analysis right now on are we charging enough for beds? The county, Yakima County charges $140 a night for bed. Last week on the news, Kittitas announced they're $110. So, we're 85. So we really need to be evaluating, if we are going to be in the jail business, because now we are in a business. We're not just housing our own prisoners. We're housing a lot of people's prisoners. And if they don't want to pay the cost for us to not have to be supporting other people's prisoners, then maybe we should just house our own.
I agree.
And get out of the business.
I agree. If
And
there's,
those are the hard, it's even, we had this conversation with court when we were meeting with the judge and the court administrator. Are we breaking even with doing the city of Toppanish's court? Or are the citizens of Sunnyside, subsidizing Toppanish's court? We need to do a cost analysis on that to figure that out. But I think that we chose to do the jail because that is a place where there's a big disparity there, and it seems like that's someplace that we need to either figure out how to break even or probably not do it at all.
no, I agree. And it shows on the 5-year comparison. I mean, the jail loses money every year.
Yep.
So, it should be business. If I have a business that's losing money, why continue?
Right. And once we got into interlocal agreements and started housing for others, we basically turned into a business.
And we're not doing a good job in running the jail as a business, in my opinion.
And the jail used to come up before council fairly regularly for asking to raise their rates, and they were trying to figure out what was gonna, what was the limit, how they could do it, and trying not to lose clientele, but trying not to lose money as well. And we haven't had that come before council for a couple of years now. So it is time that we revisit those numbers and see what we can do. I mean, if they're charging 110 in Kittitas, why can't we charge a comparable amount? Because we do house prisoners from quite a few different areas.
And like with the county, I mean, we cannot charge the county's rate because we don't provide the same level of service. They do have mental health in there, and they do have a bigger facility. They house the felons. We don't house felons. So there is a difference in that. But we should be able to charge an amount to cover our costs so that our citizenry is not paying for other cities' prisoners.
Which is pretty much what's happening. We're subsidizing and we're paying for them to stay in Sunnyside.
Right.
Ms. Ripley.
I'd like to revisit a marijuana store.
Okay, that's another revenue generating option
It is.
that can come before us in the upcoming year.
And I support that. I think we're losing out on a lot of revenue
We are.
because we haven't opened one here in Sunnyside.
Other comments or questions, Ms. Frausto?
Yes, so the code enforcement, is that the salary of 2 code enforcers?
It is. And so we had code enforcement to eliminate one position, but our animal control officer resigned. So we had 3 positions, 3 people. Now we have 2 people. And so the police chief and community development director have worked to combine animal control with code enforcement. So we'll just keep the 2 people that we have, and we'll be reducing the 1 position.
Okay. Ms. Ripley.
That would eliminate 1 vehicle, right?
Right. That's another thing. So right now, Public Works Director Sanchez has been working to see with our leased vehicles. We have a lot of leased vehicles. We have $500,000 a year in lease payments. And so he's working with them to see if the older vehicles that we have online, can we pull them out, get them sold? And we'll, we're in contract, so we have to, keep the vehicles that we have. We still have vehicles that haven't even been delivered yet that we've already ordered. So the goal is to get rid of any of the vehicles that we can, not get any new ones, but that's also going to take some consideration because from what I understand, when we went to leasing vehicles, we got a large number of vehicles up front. The vehicles that we did have, we sold them. So if we give back the leased vehicles, then we don't have replacement vehicles. So we will have to be purchasing vehicles to replace what we're leasing.
Right. And the purpose of the leasing was to save the city money overall and keep us in newer vehicles because we've tried to build up a fund to purchase vehicles and it just hasn't worked for whatever reason. Every time there's a crisis, that fund gets depleted again. And the vehicles that we had were tired.
Right.
Especially our police cruisers were absolutely just done. And so this was seen as an option to get our people in reliable vehicles, especially our first responders, and save the city some money in the long term by constantly just replacing them, in the terms of the lease. And so, and I think it was very carefully done. What's now been the problem is all of a sudden our revenues have dropped so much and that it may no longer be the best option.
Right. And we are a city of over 10,000 population. So we are required by RCW to have a full operating equipment rental reimbursement program. And so what that really means is if Public Works buys a new truck, they have to buy the truck with their own budget. And then it basically is given to equipment rental and they have to start paying rent. And their rent is equivalent to, 7 years of depreciation. And that a true equipment rental fund is going to manage that money. So when it's time to replace that vehicle, we have the money to replace it. We've been keeping it in our banking account, earning interest on our money, not leasing it and giving money to someone else.
So
But
it's a better option that way.
Yes.
Opposed to lease.
And it's a requirement. I mean, you can lease vehicles, but you lease it through your equipment rental fund. But, we'll have to figure out how to replace some of these vehicles.
So right now, after the lease, what happens to the vehicle? We return it back and that's it?
Or we have the choice to buy it. We can pay off the balance.
If I can add to that, so just talking to the agency that we're working the leases through is, first of all, they have to do a market analysis on the vehicles that we already have. They came in since beginning of 23, I believe, maybe in 22, some in PD, but so some of these older vehicles, they'll do a market analysis and see whether we're upside up or down, and then we have to make a determination what we can do with that. If some of the older ones, we're good on the market value and we could either send it back because they can sell it, obviously we're leasing it, or we can move them around depending on the fund of the department to where we can use them somewhere else and then send what we can back. So right now we're just still working through that because they're doing an analysis of that vehicle and see what the market value is. Because some of them, again, they've been coming in so many per year since then. And just like the ones that were ordered at the beginning of this year to come at the end of the year, which is now, are going to start showing up. So we may see one here and there, and then sometime at the beginning of next year. No new orders have been done, but obviously those were ordered at the beginning, so.
And we have a pool car for City Hall. Well, no one uses it. So we're still under contract with it, but we can take that and the building inspector can use that. And they have a leased truck. Or is it the code enforcement?
Code enforcement has.
Code enforcement has a lease truck. So if we can, trucks are the ones that are going to have the best resale value, especially when Public Works and building and code enforcement are driving them. Because they're just driving in town. They're not doing it. They're not chasing people. They're not coming to a, screeching halt. They're just driving the speed limit in city limits. And so they're going to have fairly low miles on them and they're not going to be driven hard. So they're going to have a better resale value. So if we can get rid of one of the code enforcement vehicles and then transfer the pool car to the code enforcement, that's one vehicle down and we're getting rid of a vehicle that no one uses that we're paying for. So we're spending the time to look at what do we have? What are we spending money on? What's working? What is, what do we need to be doing so that we're not subsidizing other cities? We're doing a utility rate study right now to change our rate structure so that the residential population is not supporting the business population. So there's a lot of things that we're working on to make some of those good changes that will have an impact on our revenues.
And I appreciate you guys doing that. I mean, this should have been done a long time ago, but it just wasn't. But at least now it's happening, and I appreciate everybody that's involved with that.
And there is an investment of money in those consultants. They're not, it's going to cost money to have this work done, but it's work that is needed, and it's work that's going to actually have a positive impact on the community and on our revenues.
Okay, further questions or comments?
And
The public comment period has come to a close. Let me address that with council in just a minute, okay? Be patient. Go ahead, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's easy in a budget hearing to kind of get off track and, talk about some very specific items. But I did want to revisit this utility tax issue because I wanted to get some clarification. It is a way to fix the pool issue right off the bat. So again, I want to reiterate that. And one strategy we could take is, and my understanding, Debbie, is we don't have to keep it at that level because the next 2 years we're going to work on save, fund balance. We could always retract that tax once we are in a comfortable position. So it's not, this tax doesn't have to remain. But again, it's probably our best and quickest option. So, Mr. Mayor, I don't want to be the one to, I'm going to defer to you to.
Okay. Ms. Ripley.
How much would that add to?
So we estimate that each 1% equals $170,000. So, obviously each increment goes up $170,000. So I think we'd need about 2 to 3%, to fund the pool, another 2 to 3% to fund the community center.
How much would that add to, is that businesses? Did you say that was for businesses or is it household and business?
And Debbie can kind of explain the mechanics. So basically our utility tax is taxed at 29%. And as Deputy City Manager mentioned, council has the authority to bring it up to 100%. Obviously, we're not going to do that. But it is a flexible tool that a lot of jurisdictions use. And I would deem this an emergency situation to fill a gap. Certainly, I'm with Deputy Mayor. I don't like taxes, and we're asking our citizens to foot this bill. But the other options that we have are very cumbersome and are going to take a long time. Levy lid lift is really difficult to get passed. Anytime you take anything to the voters and the fiscal impact of doing our other utility that's at 6% up to 8%, you take that to the voters, that's not going to go on. It would either have to be a special ballot measure that would cost us more money, and there's no guarantee it passes. And then we're in the hole a little bit more, or we wait till November. summer's already gone, so that's not going to help us out. But, again, I want to caveat, I'm not an advocate of taxes, and I think this community, has given a lot, but it is a tool that we don't necessarily have to continue in 2 to 3 years, hopefully when, our finances are robust, we have a fund balance, and then hopefully we can retract that in the future. But again, this is a way to keep those services intact. And it's a council decision. Of course, you're going to take some heat. There's no question. We're all going to take some heat for raising taxes, but those funds can specifically be allocated for those purposes within the general fund. So you can rest, we could tell the public, this is what you've spoken, and here's what you want. Here's how we can fix it in the short term. And Debbie and I and the staff will work on those fiscal solutions, because there's some things that have been done as I looked at the lease program. It's a great program if you have money. And I would argue that when we got into this, we didn't have the revenues to support something like this. And, the intent is really good, but, the practicality of it, when we looked at it and we said, gosh, dog, we have $500,000 in lease vehicles, which is a lot of money. There's no way you can get around. That's a lot of money. And I'm familiar with the program because, this has sort of evolved over the last probably 5 years, where the enterprises of the world have, they're convincing the jurisdiction, it is a good idea and it's not a good idea. Just depends if you have the money. It's like getting a car payment, you drive it off the lot, you go, wow, until the bill comes with insurance and then all these other things. So anyway, not to dribble on, but again, I just wanted to get the council focused on, this is a real solution. We could talk about, lease options and, what we're going to do at the jail. I mean, these are things that need to be fleshed out, and the FCS group is working on those things. And again, and that's why I appreciate Debbie, her transparency. We have to invest in some of these things in order to get something out of it, because, and that's why we're doing some of those things that you'll see. And, but I'll get off my soapbox, and I just wanted to get the council focused on that.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Hart.
Well, one of the things I'm thinking that, we know that the citizens want to have the pool, they want to have the community center, and that costs money. And that money comes from the public. So I think that, and we've seen the outcrying for, and we're in perfect agreement that we need to have a pool, we need to have a community center, we need to have the parks and recs. So I think in terms of that, I think we really need to look at increasing the utility tax. I think we have to. I think it's like maybe like the city manager said, perhaps we will only do it for maybe 2 years and then we push it back. The other thing is that I'm thinking is that as far as the jail, I think we really had to be in contact with the Yakima County, or we need to be upping our jail to bedtime. We need to make that more competitive. And if it's only $85 a night to stay here, then we should be shipping everybody to Yakima. I mean, we would have to pay the $145 or whatever it is, and instead of just, having the 85 here. But I think we do need to up the jail time bed, because if you look at that list of all the people where we get people coming and taking advantage of our jail. I mean, they're all the way from Snoqualmie, Bonnie Lake, all over the Pacific Northwest practically. We need to up our bed rate.
And they're coming here because it's cheaper.
They're coming here, but we could still be competitive. I mean, if the ones that you mentioned tonight are over $100, why don't we just move it on up to $100 or $105 or whatever? But let's be competitive. Let's be competitive about that.
Right.
But I really think we really need to look at increasing the tax that's paid by the people. They want the pool. We want to give it to the pool. We can't just make money down at the water we just can't make money, but we can use the city's money to make the pool available and to make it more attractive. And maybe there's some other things that come along the way too. So that's just my opinion on that.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hart. And council, just before we move on, I know as a result of some of the discussion and some of the things been going back and forth, we've got some members of the audience who would like to make a comment. Would there be any objection to allowing those members of the public to come and speak at this time?
No.
No objection? All
Go
right.
ahead and have them sign up.
So I'm going to let Ms. Soto actually come up first.
There you go.
Mr. Dolan, you've already had the microphone this evening once, so.
City of Sunnyside, I'm very ashamed to be a citizen of this community because every community around us is growing. Zilla's building a outside marketplace. Prosser, a new hospital. Their museum is being refurbished, made new. And what do we get? Having to pay more taxes. And you guys should know better. You guys are the Scrooges of Christmas present. Okay? And the Scrooges of Christmas past are the past councils and your rules committee that you're changing or whatever. I am so embarrassed to be a citizen of this community that you need to show growth. You need to show the people around you that you want to do it. And if you work hard, well, thank you for doing it. But you know what? I don't know. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Hancock?
You're next. I just want to tell you that I really think I've gone through this with stormwater. We had a hullabaloo over stormwater. You're sitting here tonight talking about increasing something by 4% or 5% or 6%. And you guys don't have the analysis in front of you. You don't know what this is going to do to my water bill or any senior's water bill or anything else, their utility bills. Before you decide that, I know you have to pass a budget before the end of the year. So pass a budget, but don't pass any taxes until you know what the exact outcome of those taxes are going to be. Because you can say, okay, well, that sounds like everybody wants a swimming pool. Not everybody goes to the swimming pool. Everybody has different needs, right? So you're saying everybody's going to pay for the swimming pool. So I'm just saying, know what your taxes are before you decide on taxing people. We have the right to know.
Thank you, Ms. Hancock. Mr. Dolan, or Mrs. Dolan, I'm sorry.
I know it wouldn't be lots of money, but it used to be, and I don't know if this was changed with the prior city manager, but that the people in charge at the fire station, the police station, had to live here. Most of them or all of them do not. Are they driving city vehicles back and forth to their place of residence? Because that's an expense. It's a fuel expense. And if they're off duty for the weekend, can't they drive their personal vehicle home? And then if they have to come back, they could bill for mileage. I don't know how much money that would save, but it may save a little bit. It may, I don't know. I don't know. Then would you have to lease as many vehicles if, they're putting extra miles going to and from every day on a city vehicle? Just a thought.
No, thank you. And just to clarify, the RCW does not allow us to require like chief of police or fire chief to live within city limits, or even our police officers to live within city limits. The only one we can require to live within city limits is our city manager. So, okay. Mr. Dolan, did you want to go next?
No, ladies.
Ms. Niemeyer.
Stop. I guess I actually got up because I was worried I was going to get kicked out. So for me, that's progress. I was making my way to the door. Admitting's the first sign of healing. But I'm so flustered on how flippant it was that let's just raise taxes. Well, I know, Julia, you want to have a conversation? We can. Well, no, she's allowed to. But I just don't understand it. Why did we get here? We all knew. Did we know that we were coming here? Did some of us know? And to me, that would just make
a huge amount of, I guess, it's healing. You're asking you're asking the stakeholders of this city to pay for something that could have been prevented. There could have been knowledge, there could have been acknowledgement. And to have them suffer, to make them have a choice of either they get the pool or have to pay for the pool, it's kind of putting salt in the wound. Now, what is the answer? I don't know. But maybe looking at, Debbie knows the budget, but if it went if we put parameters on it, I'm getting feedback. If we could go 1 year without the pool, could we afford it the next year? And if we did that and we could afford it the next year, then how could the city or an organization work with the swim team to still keep a swim team? I'm wondering, because of where we're at now, we're not going to have to look at one solution. We're going to have to look at multiple solutions because it affects multiple people and the things that they care about, that work with them. And I know that's putting more on your shoulders. And I'm really trying to help be part of the solution or give good feedback in all my frustration and anger. So I hope you hear that. But, maybe that's a question. How long will we actually take to get back where we feel comfortable again? What is the time frame within that? And if it's a 3-year plan or a 5-year plan, maybe communicating that to the public, it won't make everyone happy, but I can only speak for me, honestly, but for me, I'm the kind of person where, okay, I don't like it, but now that I see it on paper and I see where we want to go and I like where we're going, it is a solution. It's not being selfish. It's not being hidden. It's being transparent. I can't be mad with transparency. I mean, if you say we are where we are, I will accept that. And I hope a majority will too. And if they can't, I hope they come up to council and find solutions to give, because that's what we're all wanting. But maybe, looking at the bigger picture, not just this instant for this year, for this moment of what we want, but looking at it for the long run and for sustainability. Like Marty was saying, kind of look at it every month, see where we're going. I think the key is right now is we got to look at sustainability. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Dolan.
No. Thanks for that nod. First of all, I'd like to clear up some things I heard earlier about the museum. I'd like to know where the expenses you're coming up with are on the museum. The thing is at about 43 degrees, I believe, and hasn't been open for many, many, many months. I'm trying to figure out where the expenses for that place comes in. And there's an idea. Once you heat it up and we'll open it up and get people back in there and pick up a little bit of money from that. I'm thinking we need to get creative about some money. When I worked in Hawaii for 5 years, I had to give up the helicopter rides up to the north end of the island and a pickup. I had to use my own vehicle to drive down and do my job, which didn't work out very well for a while. But then when things get rough, you've got to get everybody jumping in there. And I think if you have 800 signatures or 700, whatever that was on that petition, and they have phone numbers or emails, round them up. Let's do something exciting. Let's have a winter defiance party at the park and rates. Hey, oh. So just an idea, but I just some of the things I'm hearing tonight are there's other ways. There's other ways to do this. And if we spend enough time working it out, I had to take cars away from a lot of my guys that we were putting up a big queuing plant on the Big Island. And we had to cut back on that stuff too, because the fuel and the wear and tear on the vehicles, and they were getting really used to driving those things home every night, and it wasn't working well. And a firefighter that no longer works here in this city was asking me, because how many of these guys are using city vehicles to drive back and forth? Well, for a period of time, we may have to cut back on that, or, everybody's got to pitch in and get this back on track, because there was a lot of poor decisions made in spending And we tried to bring that forward a couple of years ago, but we're moving on now when we're trying to figure out a way out of this. And I think if everybody works together and we get creative and talk to the people that want us to pay for a pool, you know, we're all pitching in money for it now, but we have to take care of the bad decisions that were made in the last, since about 2014. So that's just I'm happy to jump in and volunteer anytime that it takes to help come up with ideas. I mean, I put on so many fundraisers at that high school that I hear that word and I just try to hide somewhere, but sometimes you have to do it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Council members, any further questions? Mr. Deputy Mayor.
So I know what Mr. Gonzalez says about the utility tax and a couple other council members, agreeing with that bit. And it is a tool, but it shouldn't be the first tool we use. We definitely could look at the budget again. One of the reasons that I agreed that, okay, let's go ahead and pass one was because we are gonna go back in January, put the finance committee back in the conference room or even the basement, right? But I couldn't see myself, approving or supporting a utility tax if we're not looking at the expenditures first.
Thank you, sir.
I concur.
So, listening to all these comments, I too don't like the idea of raising taxes, and I agree with the deputy mayor. I don't think that should be our first line. What I do agree with is Mr. Beeler's comment that we need to make sure that we are looking as a full council at the budget every single month. And if that means that the subcommittee on finance meets regularly, if those individuals are willing and able to do that, that will be a huge bonus for council to be able to make informed decisions. We have a group of individuals on the finance committee who are good at looking at those line items. And we need to exercise those talents and take advantage of that for the benefit of the city. And so if those individuals are willing to do that, and as council, we agree that those members will stay on the subcommittee on finance, and they can continue to work on that throughout the course of 25, because guys, this is not a once a month commitment. It is not a January, February commitment. This is going to be a year-long commitment to rebuilding the city's financial situation. Okay, we're starting at, we're ending the year with a little bit of a balance, but essentially we're starting from ground zero in January, and we need to dedicate ourselves to making some progress. And if council is determined that things like the pool are going to be open, that is going to take a great deal of work. I don't see us passing a utility rate or a tax increase tonight anyway. This is something that we're going to have to talk a lot more about, as the one member commented that we need to have some paper in front of us, some numbers in front of us in order to make an informed, intelligent decision. And we need to be able to explain and justify our decision to the public. And we need more information in order to do that correctly. So, as long as we are willing to commit ourselves to doing that extra work over the course of this next year and realize that that is going to be our job, our homework for the year, if you will, then we can move forward. I know we live in a city that increasing taxes is going to cause a great amount of pain for some families, and that we don't want to do. We just don't want to do that. But at the same time, we don't want to take away these benefits that people can have. So, Mr. Rosso, you have a comment?
Yes, so the Yakima Herald's here, so I'm sure they're going to report on this. So how do we take control of the narrative? Because I've been saying this during past council meetings. If we're going to go ahead and approve this budget, the 2025 today, what's the communication plan around this? What are we going to tell the public? Yes, we're going to go ahead and approve this, but in January, the finance committee is going to come back to the table and is going to continue revision, or the discussion is going to continue in council. By when will we be able to give the community, or what's our benchmark of our timeline of when we will be able to give the community some more input on our ongoing process of reviewing, revisiting, and continuing the discussion around the pool, the operations around the pool. I know that the school district also starts planning field trips to the pool. So is that going to impact the school district as well? I mean, so many things to keep into consideration. But if we do, and I hear those who came up to do public comment in the beginning, it's the community that doesn't really understand the inner works of governance and budgeting and finance is probably going to take this and, you know, be very upset. I mean, even if we do approve it, I mean, there's going to be all sorts of feelings, but how do we take control of the narrative and continue to try to pull in community through this as we move forward? I've also been talking about state of the city addresses, forums that we can engage the community. And throughout the last year, we haven't done any of this. I'm still a proponent of this. I know it works. Communication. It really does work. So if we approve this, I also want us to put forth a plan of how we're going to be communicating our progress to the community.
Thank you, Ms. Frausto, and I couldn't agree more. If we are committed to meeting and having this as an agenda item in council, it's going to be obviously a public meeting and be very transparent. And obviously, definitely the Finance Committee is going to be reporting on their findings each week, right? We have a study session or we have a regular meeting every single week. And we will get to hear a report from them on the progress that they've made, what they've discovered, if they have any recommendations for council, because the Finance Committee makes recommendations to council and it is council that votes on to approve it. And so that information will be very public and very open to the community. I know when I first proposed that the March agenda will have a study on the pool and how we can operate the pool, the idea, and I mentioned this to the manager at the time, is that by April, we will have an answer for the community. So if we meet in March, we will come up with an answer in April. And if we give ourselves a deadline, that gives us something to work towards. You know, I mean, a goal without a deadline is a daydream. So let's put a deadline there and get that done. So,
and Mr. Mayor, I do want to address some of the comments. So yeah, I just want to make it clear, I wasn't proposing tonight to put for you guys to approve any sort of thing. So as we mentioned, the FCS group, so that will be done sometime in March or April. So, and within that analysis will be the impact of a utility rate increase. So there is time. I mean, you certainly could do an emergency meeting and increase the tax, but I mean, obviously that's not the will of the council at this point, and nor would I recommend that. I mean, and some of the things I want to put into context for the public is, you know, part of the reason we're here is because we've been benevolent and we haven't really made people pay much for the pool. I want to put it into context. It costs us $400,000 to run the pool. Our revenue stream between the $2 and the concession stand, we make $80,000 off that. So we're minus $320,000 on that. The community center, between salaries and just, you know, paying for the lights, it's around $275,000. So, you know, you couple that, we're about $700,000 just to operate those two entities. We don't charge rental fees unless it's for a quinceañera and things like that. And it's quite minimal. So the revenue streams on both those particular assets for us is very minimal. We don't make money off them, because I had a community member ask me, you know, you charge our kids to go into the pool. Aren't you guys making money? And they were pretty shocked when I said, no, actually, we don't. So I just wanted to put that into context. And in terms of some of the, you know, how do you control the communication narrative? It's tough. I was in the news business 20 years. You know, one thing I've done is create a city manager's blog. That's something I intend to write to more often. Exchange some messages with the gentleman who's going to help us with our strategic plan. I would like to get that plan started, you know, sometime in February, March. So I think that's something that we have to get going. And I think as part of that, we have to work on messaging, you know, meet people where they're at. I'm a true believer in community forums, and I think we need to invite people right here to what are the priorities? Because I think Teresa mentioned it. Not everybody does want the pool. You know, we think And I used to, this was in the news business, and Councilwoman Hart can attest to this. Sometimes the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and in no way am I saying the folks that are on the swim team are, you know, but a lot of times you get a really small, I mean, it might be how many people utilize the pool a year. We don't know because we don't track that data. We don't know the number of people that come multiple times. We don't know the exact number of kids who are multiple users. So we can't even give a realistic answer of, you know, 5,733 people used the pool right last year. We don't know. And, you know, we're a city of 17,000, and we get people from all across the lower valley that use that pool. So we don't know. We have to come up with better tracking mechanisms. Point being that we are thinking about a communication strategy, but I'm a true believer in data. So we'll have that data for you with the FCS group. And in the meantime, you know, what we can tell the public and we can tell the Yakima Herald is we are already working on it. We've already been working on it. But the solutions aren't easy. I mean, it took a long time to get to this place, and, you know, we're in cleanup mode, and the cleanup isn't always easy. It's just, we're in an ugly place right now where a lot of people are not going to be happy, but, you know, it's going to take a couple of years to get out of it. But, you know, I did want to put that on the record that was probably our quickest way, but I do think it needs to be thought out in terms of the utility tax increase. But we'll continue to look at the other options, increasing revenue at the jail. You know, how do we fix the lease issues? There's not a lot of wiggle room on police and fire. Those are our bailiwicks. You know, that's what we do. We have to have a safe community. We run a pretty lean staff. You know, I know the public will sometimes argue against that, but it's not like we have a million people running around City Hall. There's not a lot of us. And so, but rest assured, we are working on a plan already.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, if there's no further comments from the public or from council, let the record show this public hearing is now closed and the time is 8:31 p.m. All right, back in regular session then. Next item is the ordinance adopting the 2025 budget. Adopt the City of Sunnyside 2025 budget. Mr. City Manager, any additional comments you want to make on this item?
Just in short, thank you, Mayor and Council. Thank you to the public, because you know, I've learned we have a passionate city, and you know, I really just love the people here. So that we just held that public hearing to receive the input from the public, which we appreciate, on the final 2025 budget. At this public hearing, we did provide the presentation for the 2025 final budget, noting the budget is limited to essential and previously obligated spending and includes a reduction of staffing and programs. And we do it with a heavy heart. You know, I wake up at night. It's tough, you know, because it affects lives, and, you know, I'm the person at the helm of that. So it's not easy, but, you know, I have to do what's best for this city, and, you know, to try to get it back on track. So in the 2025 budget, it's approximately $10 million less than the previous 2 years. 2023, we started at $61,424,787. And 2024 was $62,727 and $711. So it'll be significantly less, but that's where we're starting. And I think ultimately, we're going to have a better city, and letting the public know we are working diligently on it. And I think about it 24 hours a day.
Thank you, sir. And I just want to add that there is nobody on this council, I don't think anybody on the staff likes this budget. Nobody is happy with where we've ended up. And there's all sorts of accusations that could be thrown out. What we're trying to do at this point is look forward to the future and make things better. But this is not a budget that any of us is comfortable with. And you know, it is our intent. I know it was when I spoke to previous manager a year ago when we were working on the budget, says, you know, the goal is to make this as transparent and clear to everybody as we possibly can. And unfortunately, things did not go the way that I had intended either. And we find ourselves in a bind. Again, the intention is to be as above board, as transparent, and as Ms. Frausto had mentioned, to communicate as clearly and as often as we possibly can to make sure that the public is aware of everything that's going on, that there's no surprises, and to really hold ourselves to the fire. And so that's as me personally, that's my intention with this budget, to do the best job that we possibly can and start this rebuilding process. And council members, I don't know if you've got any further comments or questions on this item. Hearing none, what is the desire of council on the 2025 city budget?
Move to adopt.
Second.
We have a motion by Councillor Hart, second by Councillor Beeler, to adopt the City of Sunnyside 2025 budget. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Mr. Beeler?
Yes.
Councillor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councillor Ripley?
Yes.
Councillor Frausto?
This is a very hard yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councillor Hart?
Yes.
I too vote yes, and as my colleague said, it's a very difficult yes. Are we, council, committed to working on it nonstop throughout this next calendar year?
Absolutely.
Yes, I am, weekly and monthly.
There we are. So let's hold our feet to the fire. Thank you, council. This has not been an easy decision. It's not been an easy couple of months. And commend the city manager for not turning around and walking back out the door as soon as you found a week after you got on board. Thank you to our finance director and deputy city manager for walking into this with your eyes wide open and still having a smile on your face at the end of this process. So you've done a lot of work, and there's a lot of work ahead of us in this.
Thank you.
All right, the next item on the agenda that we have voted on for this evening, these are the extra items. Classification and compensation schedule. Adopt an ordinance approving the 2025 classification and compensation schedule. Mr. City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is something by statute. You have to have this classification schedule so we know what to pay folks, and it's pretty standard fare as part of the process. So I'm sure this council has been through this before, and that's how I'll tee it up, Mr. Mayor. Absolutely.
Ms. Sable, yes.
I would like to just note that we do.
I don't think your microphone is on, ma'am.
Sorry. The table does show which bargaining units are getting cost of living increases. We have 2 units that are currently still in negotiations, and that's for the fire IEFF and the Public Works Teamsters group. So there will most likely be cost of living for those groups, but we won't know what those are yet until they've negotiated. And then the city manager has not included a cost of living for the non-represented staff in this budget.
And those numbers will come before council to be approved, correct?
They're right here. Oh, the collective bargaining agreements, yes, will be coming to council. That's a requirement.
Just wanted to make that
Yeah, you have to ratify those contracts.
All right, council members, questions or comments? All right, hearing none, what is the desire of council on this item?
Move to accept.
I'll second it.
And that was you, Ms. Ripley?
Yes, that was Ripley.
All right, we got a motion by Councilor Hart, second by Councilor Ripley to adopt an ordinance approving the 2025 classification and compensation schedule. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Councilor Beeler?
Yes.
Councilor Vasquez?
Yes.
Councilor Ripley?
Yes.
Councilor Frausto?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes.
Councilor Hart?
Yes.
I too vote yes. Motion passes. All right, the next item is one that came back from last week's meeting. Voucher number 17149 for Chase Bank. Approve a resolution authorizing the payment of voucher 17149 to Chase Bank. And Mr. City Manager.
And I usually give a little narrative. This is when I'm gonna toss over to Debbie. It's really her item, and not to throw blame on her. It is what it is. Right. Yeah.
It's fine. It's all is good.
Yeah.
So at the December 9th council meeting, Deputy Mayor Gavin asked to have a invoice pulled for further clarification. We were not able to provide an answer at the meeting, so that was pulled off of the consent agenda. And so we do need to bring that back for council's consideration. I did provide an email to council on the 11th with an explanation of what that is for. And just for the public's knowledge, that is a regular monthly charge for merchant services. And that's for when folks go online and make a credit card payment. They hold those funds until they get deposited into the city's regular bank account. And so we do have to pay, it's a bank check charge is basically what we're paying to hold those funds from online transactions with credit cards.
So we get a $3,319 fee for holding those funds in merchant services.
Correct.
Okay.
We also pay another vendor to do the debit cards and checks. And that's through Express. And because we do not have the ability to accept those. We don't have the IT secure to protect people's credit cards. So they have to go to a third party.
Right.
And so we have to pay those third party vendors to do that for us. And it is costly. That's one of the things where we had talked about earlier is the city also pays those charges for individuals to make online charges. So one of the initiatives that to bring back the first of next year is the charge that you pay, the charge that is collected when you make a bank transaction online is going to be proposed to be paid by the bill payer, not the city.
So look into that because I have been told that as of January 1st of 2024, that it is not legal to put an extra charge on a debit card transaction. So we may need to look at that.
Do like it's like an automatic withdrawal. It's like it could be 95 cents. There's some kind of transaction. And, the city could pay the 95 cents, but it's the $4.95, $5 that really eats.
Well, let's look into that, see what our options are.
Yep.
That answered it.
Yeah. Okay. So any further questions or comments on this item?
No, just thank you for getting back to us.
All right. So what is council's desire on this item?
Move to approve.
I'll second it.
Sorry, Ms. Hart, Mr. Beeler beat you.
Beeler beat
We
me.
had a motion by Counselor Beeler, second by Counselor Ripley to approve the resolution authorizing the payment of voucher number 17149 to Chase Bank. Is there debate on this item? Hearing none. Counselor Beeler,
Yes.
Counselor Vasquez,
Yes.
Counselor Ripley,
Yes.
Counselor Fausto,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor,
Yes.
Counselor Hart.
Yes.
I too vote yes. Thank you. And the final item of the open agenda, council boards and commission appointments. Approve the commissions of a number of individuals. The Rules Committee met last Wednesday and again today, did some interviews, and we met with some candidates that we'd like to move forward for council approval. And so I'd like to share those names with council. The first to the Planning Commission. Thank you. I blanked out. To the Planning Commission, we have Mr. Tom Dolan, Ms. Britton Moore, and Mr. Douglas Shannon have been moved forward by the committee and would like council approval. Is there any objection to any of these individuals?
No objection.
With no objection,
None.
we will appoint those three. And then finally, to the Climate Resilience Advisory Committee, we have one applicant, and that would be Dr. Jory Anderson. Is there any objection to Dr. Anderson's appointment?
No objection.
No objection. Very well. They are moved forward and they will receive a letter of congratulations on their appointments. So, and I do want to thank everybody who applied. Yes, it has been a long process and that is regrettable, but yeah.
How did that come about that you said it was council?
We did that months ago.
So let her ask her question. I'm not sure I know where she's going with this one.
I'm wondering, how you blame that on council when it was mayor's.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that question. That is a good, that is a good question. Ms. Hart, please. Ms. Hart, please. I want to say, and I don't remember the exact date, but I think it was June of 2023. As a result, and this was not changed in the SMC, and that is correct when a member of the public made that observation. It was not changed in the SMC, but it did change in practice when council in a meeting asked me to, there was some objection to an appointment that I had made, and it was a legitimate objection. And council asked, suggested that we do that differently, and instead of the mayor making that appointment alone, that there would be members of council involved in that, and it was agreed that the rules committee, which consisted of the mayor, the deputy mayor, and one other member of council, would make those appointments. And so since that time, even though, and this is where it escaped my thinking, I didn't even realize it needed to change in the SMC. I just moved forward and very distinctly did not make those decisions by myself. I made sure that that I got the application, the deputy mayor got the application, and the other member of the rules committee got the application, and we met and we discussed those applications before appointing anyone. So that became the practice without ever changing the code to make that happen. And so that's the practice that I have been using throughout this entire year. Whenever we've had an application, it has gone before the rules committee. The rules committee then agreed, and then we moved it forward in the meeting. Being reminded that it was part of the SMC, that will come before council to amend the SMC to reflect that. And so, and I'm in favor of that. The tendency is to think that perhaps the one person who is in charge of doing that might be playing favorites, and we don't want to have that happen. So in the course of this past year, every single appointment to boards and commissions has been run through the rules committee. Why did we not do that this fall? That's because our rules committee meetings for the rules of procedure were meetings that were open to the public. They were live streamed. The media was in on that. And I did not feel comfortable discussing individual applications and the merits of different individuals in an open meeting where names were out, and, you know, whether we approved or didn't approve of that particular applicant, I didn't think it was appropriate for us to have those discussions in an open public forum to be repeated on the news, on TV that evening. So that's why I didn't move that forward to talk about this fall. So, and I also confess to not being the most communicative person in the world on that sort of stuff. And so I did not outline that whole plan of action to anybody other than it was in my head, and I don't communicate a great deal. So, Ms. Frausto, it looks like you're wanting to ask a question.
Yeah, just for clarification, so the way that it's written in the SMC is that these applications should come forth to council as a whole and we review them?
No.
Not good.
No, it was the mayor that would review those applications and then bring them forward to council for council approval.
Okay. That's the way it's written on the, okay. But right now, it's in the rules committee. Y'all are vetting the applications and bringing it to us for a vote.
That's correct.
That's all.
I think that's a better process. I'm in favor of it. But it's just, we need to change the SMC to reflect that. And there was nothing anywhere that would prevent the mayor from bringing it before other members of council to help in that anyway. There's nothing said the mayor can't. It just said that's actually the mayor's appointments, and that's just how it's written in there. So, all right. The next item is on the agenda is the city manager report. Mr. City Manager.
Mr. Mayor, I don't have anything to report other than to say thanks to the council again and city staff and to the public for weighing in on the budget. Thanks.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is executive session pursuant to RCW 42.30.140, a collective bargaining session with employee organizations, including contract negotiations, grievance meetings, and discussions relating to the interpretation or application of a labor agreement, or B, that portion of a meeting during which the governing body is planning or adopting the strategy or position to be taken by the governing body during the course of any collective bargaining, professional negotiations, or grievance or mediation proceedings, or reviewing the proposals made in the negotiations or proceedings while in progress. No action is expected, but we are asking for 1 hour.
Okay. Were you expecting? Did someone order pizza?
Is Ms. Vasquez gonna be on?
A ver, Lucia.
City of Sunnyside Center of the gentleman was this you, right?
Yeah.
Well, thank you for being here this evening.
Yes, thank you for having me. So.
Was that the law?
So you just let me know when.
Nothing.
All right.
Behind the, yeah, there was, but that changed his name. It shouldn't be calling himself City of Sunnyside Center. Yeah. Because we'll be able to keep.
Unless we call her and she can,
Oh, sure.
why don't we just phone? Okay.
To that gentleman.
Yeah, because God
He
only
was in a
knows.
suit.
No, when I was mayor, that was how I did.
Does he have something that pertains to the?
Committee
No, he logged off after I
that
changed his
vetted
name
all
to
of the
Guest.
people whose names came
Can we call
forward.
yourself
That was in
City?
2017, 2018.